videos, I don't really have a lot of chances to just kind of step back and look at the whole picture, because I'm talking about the latest news week to week. And what are we getting week to week? We're getting little details, like Susan fighting and global warming and the kids riding centaurs and the White Witch and blah blah blah. All these details about the film, color Reep's fur, stuff like that. And well, some of those issues are important and can affect the film. Those aren't the things that are going to make or break this movie for me. And so in this video, I want to just I'm just kind of forget about the news for a while, and I want to take a big step back and just talk about some of the really important, essential issues of the book. That whatever other changes they make are just absolutely essential that they get in the movie. This sounds simple enough, but like everything Narnia, that's the great thing about it, is it sounds so simple, but actually there's more to it than that. It's the idea of return, the theme of return. And as most of you are probably aware, the book Prince Caspian, the original title, was actually The Return to Narnia. The publisher asked for something different, and so Lewis changed it to Prince Caspian. But Lewis felt so strongly about the theme of return that he insisted that they keep the subtitle The Return to Narnia. So as you can see, Prince Caspian, the full title is actually Prince Caspian, The Return to Narnia. Lewis insisted on keeping that subtitle in there. And return to such an important idea. This is actually one of the reasons why it's really important, I use my label maker here to adjust this, that Prince Caspian has to be read as number 2, not number 4. You can't read Horse and His Boy and then Return to Narnia and Prince Caspian. Prince Caspian has to be The Return to Narnia. That's thematically, that's so important. So that's just one more argument for publication order right there. Prince Caspian's got to be number 2. And so you've got the Pevensies returning to Narnia. It's been 1,300 years for Narnia, 1 year for them. That's it. Narnia. There's a lot of a lot of the books talk about time and how there's different times, and that's always really interesting. But I think Prince Caspian has the most interesting way of doing that, of being coming back and wow, it's 1,300 years into the future basically. And then you've got sort of that strangeness also of coming back and you're a myth and legend, and as they say in the new video, the world that no longer exists and everything. It's a strange idea. And you've got Narnia being redeemed and returning to the old ways. That's kind of what Bacchus and Silenus represent, is the return to the old ways. And then just that whole idea that they're like legendary heroes coming to life to the Narnians. I love how in chapter 1 of Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Lewis says, when the Pevensey children had returned to Narnia last time for their second visit, it was, for the Narnians, as if King Arthur had come back to Britain. And I love that idea that it's like these figures out of their bedtime stories, these legendary figures come to life, and you imagine coming back to the world and people debate whether or not you exist. Most fascinating idea in the book, and one of the most fascinating ideas in the entire series, I think. It really plays into that whole idea of the myth becoming real, which is an important theme kind of throughout the whole series, but I think no more so than in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Prince Caspian. In Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, this idea is there, like, Tumnus asks Lucy, you daughter of Eve, and he has that Is Man a Myth the book on his bookshelf. And but I still see Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as being more from the children's point of view of them discovering Narnia, them discovering that all this stuff is real. Prince Caspian, it's that same theme, but it's more from the Narnians' point of view. It's I would argue that it's just from the old Narnians in general, their point of view of the Pevensies coming to life and everything, and now it's reversed. Instead of Narnia coming to life for the kids are coming to life for Narnia. I love that idea. And I also had a recent conversation with another Narnia fan where he said that, no, it's more from Caspian's point of view, and old Narnia becoming real to him. That's another way of looking at it, too. But that idea of the myth becoming real, Bacchus and Silenus is also a part of that. Is a really important idea in the whole series, and that's kind of one of the things that pushed Lewis's conversion to Christianity, is that idea that the Bible is the true myth, the myth that's true. And can't get into that here, but that's why that's such an important idea. So that idea of return and to the old ways, the myth becoming real, is a really important theme in the story. That's probably the most important thing. If they get one thing right, they got to get that. But then there's also a really powerful spiritual theme. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe has the most obvious biblical parallel with Aslan and the Stone Table, but I think Prince Caspian has a more powerful spiritual theme, and it's pretty simple: faith. But that's what's so great about Narnia. Once again, simple theme, but there's just more to it than that in this book. When Caspian wakes up, Caspian meets 3 people who represent 3 different points of view. this after he gets conked on the head and wakes up in Trufflehunter's den, meets three people that represent three different points of view. He meets Trumpkin. Trumpkin is a total skeptic, doesn't believe a word of these old fairy tales, you know, as he calls them and everything, and he thinks it's all eggs and moonshine, and doesn't believe a word of it. NIKABRIK's somewhere in the middle. Kind of skeptical, but he's very open-minded. You know, he's open to the fact that it might be true. You know, he'll believe in anything or anyone that'll help them, basically. So NIKABRIK's somewhere in the middle. Trufflehunter is the opposite of Trumpkin. Trufflehunter believes these stories to the very end. We beasts don't change. That's his logic behind it. We beasts don't change. You know, that I stand by Aslan. He said, even when it looked like they'd blown the horn and nothing had come of it, even when it looked like Dr. Cornelius was even starting to doubt a little bit, Trufflehunter was true to the end. And, of course, ended up being right. Even though NIKABRIK's argument kind of makes sense, NIKABRIK kind of gives a very 1, 2, 3, here is why Aslan can't exist argument, and it actually makes sense. If you hadn't read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and you just read that scene, you might say, maybe he's right. And NIKABRIK doesn't, most of what he says is actually true. You know, but the way he puts it together makes it seem like, wow, you know, it makes all that Aslan stuff sound kind of ridiculous. And, of course, we see that, you know, our world today. But, but Trufflehunter is still true to the very end. And Faith is kind of what the scene where Aslan is invisible to some of the Pevensies is about. It's so dramatically appropriate that Lucy is the first, she kind of representing that childlike innocence and complete belief in Aslan is the first to see Aslan. It takes the others a little longer, and how appropriate that Susan is the last. Susan's all about rules, and, you know, she's got to be able to hold it in her hands and understand it. That's what the idea that she represents. And then after this story, this is her last visit to Narnia, after a few years, she starts to even doubt her own memory because she can't explain it. That's why it's so important in Last Battle that she's not there. Even though Lewis obviously said that he still believed there was hope for Susan and she might come around. Lewis said that in a letter. That's why it's so important that in the last book Susan is not there. She's representing that idea of she's got it. If she can't understand it, she just can't accept it. And so that's why Susan is the last person to see it. And they're off to a good start in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie with her character. She's sometimes annoying, yeah, but what are her first words when she steps through the wardrobe? Impossible in the movie. You know, obviously that's not really what they're saying, but I just kind of wonder if that was kind of a subtle reference to the fact that she sees it, but her first words are impossible. It can't be, you know? And so I like that. And Susan and Miraz kind of have something in common, in my opinion, and as far as Narnia goes. That might sound kind of weird, but I always got the feeling with Miraz that this isn't really in the book, I don't think, but I always got the impression, reading the book, that there's a part of Miraz where he knows that all this is true, but he's like, no, he doesn't want to believe it, you know, the whole letting the woods grow up and imagining they're full of ghosts and everything. He just doesn't want to believe it, wants to stamp it out. Wants to say, no, this world is all that there is. There's nothing more. And obviously you see that in our world all the time. People say, no, this is all that there is, what you can see and what you can touch. That there's nothing more. And obviously in Prince Caspian, you know, Caspian and all the Telmarines discovered, no, there is something more, which is kind of what The Horse and His Boy is all about, the book, is that idea that this longing that there's got to be something else out there. This world can't just be all that there is. And so that's an important idea. So it's those three main ideas. Return, the myth coming to life, and faith. Those are the three really important ideas on Prince Caspian. They got to get those things right. Yeah, there are other important things, but those are the essential core issues that you know, that's going to make or break the film for me. Then there's some scenes that I want, some just because they're thematically important, and some because I just like them. I like the fact that Miraz's own pride kills him. Miraz couldn't take the insult from Glumpuddle and Caspian that, you know, he was basically old and couldn't beat Peter, and because of that he foolishly accepts Peter's challenge and ends up dead and his army defeated. Caspian on the other hand humbles himself at the very end when Aslan, you know, talks to him. Caspian humbles himself, and because of that, it seemed worthy to take up the kingship. So those are some of the really essential things about Prince Caspian. You know, Lord of the Rings had some really annoying changes too. Frodo sending Sam away. I squirm when I see it, but Lord of the Rings is still my favorite movie and one of my favorite adaptations because they got it. They essentially got what makes Lord of the Rings Lord of the Rings. They got the heart of the story. The important themes and ideas in Lord of the Rings were very much in the film, in my opinion. And I'm hoping that even though it looks like they've changed more things story-wise with Prince Caspian, I'm hoping that these three themes, I think the trailer kind of captures, you know, some of this, that these three themes will still be very present in the film. And if they can do that, I'm not going to be it's going to be much easier for me to forgive some of these changes they made to the film. But in 62 days, I'm going to post a review for this film, and then these are the three main issues that I'm going to be discussing more than anything, I think, in my first review.